Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and in today's video we're going to be looking at elimination and substitution. So we're going to start off with an example here. That example is going to be 2x squared plus 3y is equal to 5. We'll call this equation number 1, and x squared plus y is equal to 3. We'll call this equation number 2. So we're going to start off looking at substitution, okay? And I'm going to write the rules here on the side. So substitution. Now, the first rule in substitution would be to isolate one of my variables. So isolate one of my variables. Now, it doesn't matter which equation you do this in. You can do it in either equation number 1 or equation number 2. Now, in this case, it makes more sense to use equation number 2 because you already have a variable that is already kind of by itself. It's not being multiplied by anything, it's not being divided by anything. So this is going to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to write it here on the side. So if I want to get y by itself, well, I have to get rid of this x squared. And to do that, I'm going to need to subtract x squared from both sides, giving me y is equal to 3 minus x squared. Let's call this equation number 3. Okay? Once you've isolated one of your variables, you are then going to substitute that variable in the other equation. So we used equation number 2, so we're not going to be substituting it in equation number 2. We are going to be substituting it in equation number 1. Now when I say substitute, I basically mean you find what the y was, and that y will become this value. I'm going to use 2 different colors so you guys can see how this works. So I have 2x squared. Nothing changes there because there's nothing wrong with the x's. But then you have 3, and 3 is being multiplied by the y. Now the y becomes 3 minus x squared. Okay? Why? Because I'm telling you here that y is 3 minus x squared. And it's equal to 5. Once you've done that, you go to a third step, and that third step would be to expand and simplify and solve for the remaining variable. Okay, so that means we're going to have to go all Pokemon Go here. We're going to catch some stuff. Okay, so that's going to give me 2x squared plus 9 minus 3x squared is equal to 5. We want to collect our like terms, so I have 2x squared and minus 3x squared. They both have an x squared, which means we can collect them. So 2 minus 3 will be negative x squared. I want to get rid of everything that's bothering my x, so the next thing is you want to get rid of the plus 9 by doing subtract 9 from both sides. It's going to give me minus x squared is equal to minus 4. Now at this point you can probably divide both sides by the negative, making it x squared is equal to positive 4. And then finally take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root of something that has a squared, the squared disappears, the roof disappears, and you're left with the x. And then of course, not equal, no. That's wrong. So you're going to be left with x is equal to, well, when you take the square root of a number, you always are going to have the plus minus of that answer. And that's mainly because minus 2 times minus 2 will give me 4, but also positive 2 times positive 2 will also give me 4. So you have 2 possible answers there for the square root. There's only one last step here. I found out what my x is. You now have to take this x and substitute it into this equation. Okay, so I'm going to do this over here. So I now know that y is equal to 3 minus, but I now know that x can either be plus 2 or minus 2. So let's do it if it's plus 2. So I'm going to put 2 squared, which will give me 3 minus 4, which is negative 1. Or if I used minus 2, that would be y is equal to 3 minus 2 squared. It's going to give us the same answer in this case because it's squared, which is negative 1. So my x is 2 and minus 2, and my y is simply minus 1. And that's how you would do this question using substitution. I'll now show you guys how to do it using elimination. Okay, now in the second case, we're going to be doing this with elimination. I'll put these steps here on the side. Now, when you want to do it through elimination, you also want, in your first step, to choose the variable that you want to get rid of. It's kind of like in Terminator, you know, comes back for John Connor, you want to erase something. So what wants to get terminated? Now, if I look at this equation, I can get rid of either my x squared or I can get rid of my y. I'm going to choose to get rid of my x squared. Again, you can get rid of the y, it's really up to you. And once you do that, you need to multiply your equations with a common factor. That's mainly because in elimination, you are looking at this like you would look at any kind of equation when you're trying to add or subtract them. So how can I get rid of, if I'm trying to get rid of the x squared, I want to get rid of 2x squared. How would I get rid of that? Well, you notice here, I have x squared plus y. Well, if I multiplied everything here by 2, which also means I have to multiply everything here by 2, because one side has to be also multiplied by the other, then I would end up having 2x squared here. Now your next step would be to figure out, what do I need to do? Do I need to add the two equations to each other or subtract them? Well, if I did 2x squared plus 2x squared, I'd get 4x squared. That's not what I want. I want to get rid of it. So if I did 2x squared minus 2x squared, that would give me 0, which would get rid of it, which means I want to subtract this equation from that. So I want to do equation 2, equation 1, and I want to subtract equation 2 from 1. So how's that going to look like? Well, 2x squared minus 2x squared, these go away. 3y minus 2y will give me y. And 5 minus 6, because you have 2 times 3, which is 6, will give me minus 1. Of course, the third step here would be to collect any like terms if you had any, but there is no more like terms. You just have y is equal to negative 1. So my third step would then be take this value and sub it into either equation and solve for the other variable. So it doesn't matter which equation you put it in. You can put it in equation 1, you can put it in equation 2. I'm going to choose to put it in equation number 2 because that seems to be the easier one. So I'm going to do y is equal to negative 1. I'm going to put it into equation 2. What that means is that I'm going to have x squared, nothing's happening there, plus my y now becomes minus 1, and it's going to be equal to 3. So I want to solve for x squared. Well, first things first, I want to get rid of the things that are bothering it, which is this. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides to get rid of this, which is going to leave me with x squared is equal to 4. Take the square root of both sides to get rid of the square, just as usual, which is going to leave me with x plus or minus 2, just like we got before. Now, the last step is basically the exact same as the last step we did before, which is absolutely nothing, because you don't even need to do the last step here, because I have both of my answers. I have x is equal to plus or minus 2, and y is equal to minus 1, which is the exact same answers we got using substitution. Now, you don't have to use both methods when you're trying to solve an equation. Just use the one that you are most comfortable with. I hope this has helped anyone when it comes to elimination and substitution. Thank you, and have a good day.